still later in. So, we'll call the budget workshop to order. Commissioner Smith, please prepare to close.
Heavenly Father, we come once again, blessing. Thank you for all the blessings that you bestowed upon us. Bless now, Father, as we participate in this budget workshop. Help us to be good stewards, O God, of the resources you have given us. And we be so careful to give you the praise, the glory, and the honor. And that's in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We start. Blanche?
No, well, I'm just going to introduce Mr. Henry Thomas with Raf Tillis. We have three agenda items that we're going to go over with you. Can't hear me?
My
Um, Three agenda items that we're going to go over with you. The first is going to be our water, wastewater, and reclaimed water rate study results, then sanitation, and then we'll go into the impact fees, and then we'll talk about the stormwater fees.
Thank you, Blanche. Mayor, Commissioners, Henry Thomas, Senior Vice President, Reftalis Financial Consultants. We've been looking at your enterprise funds for some time now and gone through a number of iterations to refine things. I know we've previously done a workshop, for example, on the municipal impact fees with you. There's been some changes to those fee proposals since that time. Again, we've talked about preliminary results in the past, but today we'll give you an update of where we are. Before you have to adopt these fees, we have two of the three reports complete that we'll provide you after this workshop, assuming that you are comfortable with the direction we're headed. We don't want to make further changes. And then the third report is will follow shortly, but you'll have it before you're asked to adopt these rates. So again, with all the enterprise funds, and in this case, it's water, wastewater. Reclaimed water is really a function of that water, wastewater enterprise. And then your sanitation operations are a separate enterprise. But the approach is the same, and that is to balance the revenues in the fund with the revenue requirements, including expenses, capital, including debt funded capital, any transfers to the general fund, and those have to be funded through rate revenues, impact fees, and other miscellaneous fees. So one of the things that we're looking at here is the funds themselves are quite a bit different in the nature of the buckets that we have to address. For example, in water, wastewater, you've got a significant capital plan that's addressed through future borrowings and through the use of impact fees to help pay for the expansion related portions of the water, wastewater, and reclaimed water projects. The sanitation utility, when we go through it, there the capital program is mainly driven by the need to maintain your fleet. So we don't have a lot of infrastructure projects, but we do have high operating expenses in sanitation relative to total revenue requirements. So again, they're a little different, and we're going to talk about some of the underlying assumptions that we used in coming up with the projected rate needs. So again, we started with historical data. We started with budgetary data. With respect to the capital improvement program, we went through and looked at the nature of the projects. If it was a major project with a long-lived asset, we tended to look at that as being funded through some future debt. If it was an ongoing renewal and replacement to maintain infrastructure and to make sure that you get the life expectancy out of it and that it's more of an ongoing expenditure, we funded those directly out of rate revenues. Obviously, the expansion related projects, we focused the impact fees on them. In addition to the funding strategy, we also have some established cash reserve targets and financial performance requirements. You're going to see that in the sanitation fund, we've got a long way to go to be able to meet those target requirements. We're not trying to fix anything overnight, but that fund in particular has it's at the point where it's not sustainable at current rates, and we have to build cash reserves back up because we've been relying on those in the recent term. Um, anyway, from here we'll tell you what we think the adequacy of rate revenues are and the rate plan that we would recommend. Obviously, I'm sorry. Obviously, a lot goes into this, and we certainly want to get your input into the major assumptions. But so basically, we've used current cash reserves to try to phase in any adjustments if possible. Uh, we've tried to achieve and maintain positive cash flows for the system so that as we go forward, we're not continuing to rely on reserves. Uh, the targeted reserves is twofold. For water wastewater, we are trying to achieve 150 days of targeted cash reserves. For the sanitation system, which doesn't have as many contingencies in it, the policy is 90 days that we're striving for of revenue as a reserve. Also, with respect to the debts on the water wastewater system, there's some senior lien and subordinate lien coverages. That, as you know, debt service coverage is just the margin above that revenues exceed operating expenses by that is available to pay for debt. We shoot for a target of 150 all in. That's what our bond counsels and market tells us is a good uh, target that reflects industry standard performance. That 150 means that for every dollar of debt, you've got $1.50 available to pay that debt. However, the reason that target works is we also have transfers that don't get counted in that equation and pay as you go funding. So there is a reason we achieve a target over debt of 150% because those monies get spent in other ways that aren't part of the debt service coverage calculation, if you will. That being said, some of the assumptions right now, you're serving approximately 29,000 water accounts, 24,000 wastewater. You've got 10,800 reclaim accounts in fiscal year 2025. The growth we have in here is over time, it's averaging about 2.3%, but we really started out with some fairly significant growth in 2025, tapering down by 2029. In 2025, we're reflecting 6.7% growth. This is based upon the activity that the planning department is seeing currently and reflects the near-term growth you're experiencing. Combined system revenues in your water wastewater service area. Combined system revenues at existing rates would grow from 33.7 million to 36.6 just because of that customer growth with no adjustments in rates. Other revenues from miscellaneous charges, meter set fees, tap fees, interest income is approximately 1.6 million a year. And you're experiencing on average, we're projecting impact fee revenues of just under 10 million a year. But that first year, they're expected to be almost $20 million when you're experiencing that high growth in 2025. Um, so with respect to the costs and the expenses that go into this, the current expenses are 24.7 million in the water wastewater fund. They're increasing to 33.9 million over the 5 years. That's an average increase of about 8.2% a year. Uh, that's more than inflation, obviously, but the forecast does include over the 5 year period 8 new FTEs to meet the needs of the growing system and the maintenance and operating requirements you'll be facing. By 2029, that's just over $600,000 of additional expense for those 8 new FTEs. Otherwise, labor increasing at 5% a year, health insurance a little higher than that, 12, repairs at 3.5, chemicals at 5. These are fairly standard factors that we've used in many jurisdictions recently. The debt currently is about $5 million a year. Uh, General fund transfers are 3.3 million, increasing over time to 4.1 million by 2029. The capital improvement plan is $188 million. 55.8 of that is funded from impact fees, 30%. 101 million funded from debt funded projects, 54%, and 30.7 million in rate funded projects, and existing impact fees are about 16% of the plan. Uh, I put a note in here for you that this plan originally was much higher, and I'm sure the staff could share with you, but they went through a lot of work to scrub that capital plan to make these rate adjustments as reasonable as possible. I'm sorry. Um, so there's new annual debt of 3.2 million starting in FY 2026 that would increase your total debt to 8.1 million by 2027 to fund those capital projects that we've assumed to be funded from debt. And that debt instrument we've assumed is an SRF loan type arrangement. So this chart just real quick shows you the components of the revenue requirements. The operating expenses are the red portion of the bar chart. They make up the bulk of the expenses. The one that's growing, as you can see here, this is the water system. And you've got that debt service coming on in 2027. That's for the expansion you're doing to the water plant. You can see that capital funded from rates is also projected to need to increase over time. So the black dashed line on this chart shows where the revenues would be. And so without any rate increases, we'd still be able to fund operations and debt, but a little above that over the course of the 5-year period. Similar picture for wastewater, where over time we're not fully recovering our costs. And again, you can see here that in 2027, there's also increases in that debt service component for wastewater. And then the capital funded from rates takes a pretty good jump in 2029 because of projects that are out in that time frame that are cash funded. This is a similar pattern for reclaim. There's no uh, there's no transfers of capital funded from rates coming towards the reclaim system. They do get an allocated portion of operations and debt service and transfers. So, issues affecting rates. It's a significant capital improvement program. It's designed to not only expand the system, but to upgrade it. So there's benefits to both existing payers and future growth in this plan. The future increase in debt service is due to additional funding for major capital improvement projects. Significant increases in renewal and replacement. We've phased that in over the 5-year period, and there's additional personnel and inflationary pressures that we've built into the forecast. Again, this is the result now in terms of percentage impacts. You can see that it starts out with its front ended, 2 fairly significant increases at 15.5%, and then falling back to something more close to inflation. The problem we had trying to spread this out further was that resulted in diminished cash values that are cash balances that were hard to justify. So it's the way the funding is right now, the project schedules, most of this increase needs to be front end loaded. This just shows on a combined basis, if you do raise those rates, how the dashed blue line, the new revenues will satisfy your costs over time. Uh, this just shows where we're at on operating reserves. This is with the rate increases adopted. And you can see that we've put on this chart. The orange dashed line is equivalent to 120 days. The green is 150. The light blue is 180. And you can see that we're exceeding the 150 target slightly by the end. Again, all these funds stay in the fund and will get used for projects, but this is this is really the outcome we were trying to achieve with operating reserves. Um, this just shows, I'm not going to go into all the detail, but this just shows that even with the new debts, with these rate increases, you will be in compliance and you'll meet your coverage requirements. This is the comparison of where you are today. Currently, for 6,000 gallons of water, wastewater, you're at $71.38. You can see that the folks or that your bill in 2026 would be 82.46. That's a little over a $10 increase. And again, you can see that even though it moves you up in position, there's quite a number of systems right in the middle of that chart that are comparable. When you're looking at your rate at 82.46, keep in mind that the rates for all these other communities are today's rates. Winter Garden, for example, that's the rate they have in place for this year, but they have a path that would increase rates next year. Similarly with Claremont, St. Cloud, Ocoee. So my point to you is that I suspect that as you move up through this next several years, so will your fellow utility systems. We recently did a survey, and I did not remember to bring it with me, but I'm going to share it with you. And it's recent rate increases by some of our clients that you'll know very well, and they're all quite a few of them are in the 9 to 10% range every year for multi-year periods. So right now there is a lot of pressure on utility expenditures and rates, unfortunately. So based on that, the observations and recommendations are that the current rates will be insufficient, particularly with respect to funding that capital plan, uh, due to increases in operating costs, capital costs that are built into the CIP, and the funding strategies that we have applied. The rates would need to go up 15.5% in 26 and 27, followed by 3.5% thereafter. So we're trying to phase back to that annual increase that's more inflationary based, but we need a couple of years to be able to get there and keep the system viable financially. So that's water, wastewater. Uh, we would recommend you adopt the proposed adjustment plan. We would conclude that it will maintain positive cash flow, that it'll meet coverage requirements for any borrowing that we've assumed, and that operating reserves will build up and remain at targeted levels. So that's what I have on these enterprises. If you want to stop and ask me questions before we go on to the impact fees, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, any questions for Henry?
I just had one question, and I appreciate you being here and for this presentation. You had made a reference in here to the capital improvement plan, the CIP, and that there were adjustments made internally from that plan to kind of make this work. Are we able to get a list of kind of the original CIP plan and then what was taken out to?
We certainly have supporting documents for that.
Okay.
Most of that work was done with your engineering and finance staff.
Right, and that was my understanding as well.
But
So that's
we can share with you. We have the original plan going back to the beginning was $400 million.
right.
Okay, so we have those documents, and you can see what's been taken out and what's stayed in.
Yeah, if we can get that just to
We'll
understand
make that available too.
that would be very helpful.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Commissioner, I think when we did previous workshops, when I shared all the CIP capital stuff, it should have been, it was included in that original. And I said
Which
we had
workshops?
last year,
24,
last year,
25.
last year, when we were doing workshops last year, but it should be in those documents, but I'll make sure you get it.
So it matches what we did last year?
No. We started this process last year.
Right.
And so we started it with the 400 and some plan. And that's when I told you we had to cut that back. That was that 40%.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we had to come back and cut it back down. So that information was probably shared at some point, but I'll make sure you
Was that cut back any additionally to this year? So it's exactly what we did. It's the same projects that we budgeted for last year. Or it was the same.
plan that we was looking at
Correct.
last year.
So that didn't adjust at all.
No. That's what we saying. We had to come back and adjust again because remember the rates were coming in at 40%, 40%, 40% like that.
Yes.
And so we made that adjustment in for that 1 year down to the 23.5.
Right.
If you look here, your first year in this plan
Mhm.
is 2025 at 23.75. So this is the same plan, and now we just have cut some of those projects back to
They're
reduce
pushed
those
back.
rates. Mm-hmm.
And I just want to know. I just want to see that
Yeah.
list again, if
Yeah.
I can, just to refresh everybody's memory.
Yeah.
I think that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think actually you had about 3 iterations to get where you wanted to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Perfect. Thank you.
Any
All
other
right.
questions for Henry?
No.
All right.
all right. So sanitation. This is a little different service territory than the water wastewater because this is within the city limits. You've got currently 21,400 customers in 2024. You've been experiencing customer growth of about 1.8% a year, so a little less growth than the water wastewater system as a whole. Combined system revenues without any rate increase based on that growth continuing would go from 6.8 to 7.3 million by 2029, just due to the number of additional customers adding to the system. Other revenues are miscellaneous, franchise fees and service charges, very little. There is some fund balance and interest income in this fund, but not a lot. Revenue requirements. So your operating expenses are 7.1 million in 2025, based on the projections similar to what we used in water wastewater, labor 5%, health insurance 12. In this case, fuel is an important commodity. We use 7% for fuel in 2026, 5% thereafter. Tipping fees. The tipping fees are what we pay to dispose of the waste with Orange County, and your staff they received the county's projected rates for at 12% a year increase through 2028, and then 5% in 2029, and then yard waste bulk recycling at 5% a year. So those were provided by the county, those escalations. Capital improvement plan over the 5-year period, relative to your operating expenses, the whole plan for 5 years is 6.8 million, and that's basically vehicle replacement and expansion program that you need when you're adding vehicles. It's fully funded from rates. This just demonstrates. You can see here that, as I indicated to you earlier, operating expenses really are the predominant cost in the solid waste system. So it's those folks that are out there, collecting the waste on a daily basis, and the fuel and materials and repairs needed to make that happen. The capital portion, the vehicle portion, is really a smaller portion of the overall revenue requirements. You can see because of the nature of the fleet, and again, we have these details, but the fleet itself, the expenditures weren't necessarily equal every year because of the kind of trucks and the age of the trucks and when you were replacing them. So you can see those capital expenditures on this chart are a little, I would say they're lumpy, some years higher than others. But we're trying to fund it over time and not just chase the need in a given year. So the issues affecting rates here are personnel costs, inflationary expenses and operating, tipping fees. That's a big one, especially with that 12% for the next 2 years. And then the increased cost of new fleet that is certainly going up quite a bit since the last time you adjusted sanitation rates. Here, we did something similar to this in a few years back in water wastewater. What we did here is we looked at the marketplace around us, and a lot of our competitors have commercial providers that provide those waste collection efforts in other communities. And so what we did is we looked at, as well as other municipal providers that provide commercial, and we kind of created an opportunity cost approach and said it doesn't make any sense to increase rates to the residential class when the commercial class isn't paying a market-based rate. So you can see in the 1 year, the commercial class gets a little bigger increase. And then once we've taken care of that market adjustment, they both increase at 6.5% a year thereafter. Now, the anecdotal entirely, my experience is oftentimes your sanitation department is one of the departments within the city that people have the highest regard for. And so if you're given a good high level of service, this is one where we've seen actually support for rate increases in other communities as opposed to options that reduce the level of service. Okay, like number of times you pick the trash up and things like that. So anyway, this is the rate path for sanitation. Now, we took that same uh, comparative approach, market-based approach, and we looked at individual services because in commercial, it's a little nuanced. You have different dumpster sizes with different number of pickups. You have commercial carts, and what we did basically, your 4 yard rate was well below everybody else's, whereas your commercial cart rate was closer. So we adjusted accordingly within the rate classes to again give you that nice competitive comparison with all your neighbors. This just shows that with the rate increases, that we should be able to meet your revenue requirements, have some reserve built up in the fund. Again, at existing rates, we wouldn't be able to fund any new vehicles, and by 2027, you wouldn't be even funding your labor and operating expenses. So this just shows you here the problem we're having with this fund. I mentioned to you at the outset that this fund was struggling a little. So our goal is to achieve 90 days of rate revenue as the balance. And you can see here, particularly because of that extra vehicle expense we had in 2027, we don't keep moving to our goal quite as quickly as we'd like to. It dips back off a little bit, but then by 2029 we achieve the target cash balance. This will give you flexibility going forward to make purchases of vehicles that may be unanticipated, to make unanticipated repairs, to have flexibility in timing of rate changes. Right now, again, you have very little options with the fund having essentially no cash in it at the moment. So this is the comparison. This is the current rates that others are charging that reflects current solid waste bills for residential. The report, when we give you the report, we'll have some commercial comparisons as well. But here you can see that you're at 2313 going to 2660, and the average of the other folks in this comparison, which is heavily Central Florida oriented, is 2512. So again, I'd say your rates are very competitive, even with the comparative, even with the rate increase. So again, for this one, existing rates won't be sufficient. You won't be able to fund all your operating expenses or any new vehicles if you don't have a rate increase, absent reducing staff and reducing costs. Due to those increased operating expenses, we're recommending the 15% increase in 2026, followed by 6.5% a year till we get this thing in a sounder position financially. And then for the commercial class, a higher increase overall for the first year, again followed by 6.5% thereafter. So again, we would recommend you adopt the proposed plan. We would find that it will produce positive cash flow and help you build your reserves back up to targeted levels. And that's sanitation. So if you have any questions on that, maybe we can do that before we go to impact fees.
Yeah. Any questions for Henry on sanitation? All right.
Okay.
You have commercial. Do you
I'm
have
sorry.
residential? Yeah. Oh, here it is.
Yes.
So residential, you're recommending 15%.
Yes, ma'am. And you can see on it, let me go back. That would take the rate from 23.13 to 26.60 a month.
Okay,
So
so
that's
that
a
rate would take,
$3 and 47 cent increase per month. And that would put you compared to your neighbors here. And again, if you look, you'll see we've got, Winter Garden, Mount Dora, a lot of local utilities, and the average that folks are paying out there to these other communities is about 25.12. So you'd be slightly higher than the average. But again, like you were in water and wastewater, you can see that everybody's kind of uh, accumulated around the center of that chart. So you don't see too many that are real high. Orange County, their rates were approved and are significantly higher.
But
Those
that's
were,
their new rate. That's not
yeah,
their
that's the
old.
new rates. Yes, sir.
Now, are all these new rates or are these?
No, no, most of these are today's rate, but we did have the recently approved Orange County rates we could put in here.
We probably need to.
So the problem is we may not know what Altamont Springs is
Well, I
doing.
know that, but it's not fair to Orange County. I mean, we ought to have the
Yeah,
tax
well,
their
we could
20.
put Orange County back at what their prayer
Well, or
rate
just put
is.
the tax their 26 rate.
But again, I guess my view of this is that it really shows you that the cost of doing business is around $25 a month for these kind of systems for residential customers, and everybody's really uh, around that range. You know, you could look at levels of service and things, but if you're going to keep doing business the way you are today, then the rate needs to be at that 26.60
Before
level.
we leave that, Josh, can you tell me on the cities that are on this residential rate comparison, how many of them are like us, two per week, and how many of them are one per week? Can you? Because I mean that also is a factor in the.
I believe that I know the city of Winter Garden is twice a week. I think that might be the only one.
Oh, really?
Most of these are once a week pickup.
So
I know
Winter Garden, okay.
the county's once a week. Some of these others outside of the county here, I'm not 100% sure on, but
Okay.
yeah,
Which
they're
is pretty
mostly
much
once a week.
other
Yeah.
than Winter Garden. Okay. Thank you.
So on the reserve section of it, we have no reserves in the 447 then, right now.
That's the way we're reading it. Yes, sir.
Okay. And if we weren't to do the increase, I mean, we would never catch up. We would never be able to fund reserves, new trucks. We would never catch up.
Well, yeah, if you didn't do the increase, if you look back on this chart on page 33, what you'll see is that right away you couldn't fund any new vehicles or replacement vehicles. And then by the third year, you'd have to start reducing your operating expenses to make it work,
Understood.
which is mostly labor. So
I understand. Thank you.
excuse me, Mayor, Commissioner Anderson is on the way,
Okay.
just to
Okay.
let you know.
All right. Any other questions for Henry? Okay.
all right.
All right.
So let's go to municipal impact fees. I'm earning my dinner tonight.
This I can't see.
Okay, so this one we did a little while back as well. And based upon that workshop we did, I know the staff of the various operating departments that use impact fees to pay for their expansion related capital needs, they all went back and sharpened their pencil and took another look at things as it relates particularly to the public safety facilities and also recreation facilities related to the swimming pool complex, the aquatic complex. That being said, some basics, and you all know this, but the fees are paid by new development based on the nexus of a demand for an increase in municipal services caused by that development. And they're used to pay for capital facilities, and in the case of police and fire, for major equipment such as firefighting vehicles, fire trucks, police cars. With otherwise, it has to be infrastructure related. So, so for example, new headquarters, new ball fields, things that, or possibly even more land for recreation, could be a use of these funds. Uh, and again, the theory is to try to make sure that growth helps pay for itself, and that any fee we collect obviously reduces the burden of existing residents to fund these kinds of improvements. Um, the basics of it also include both statutory requirements and case law. One of the most important things in the case law is the dual rational nexus test. Impact fees are based on the capital cost requirements that are anticipated, but then we need to spend those fees on the same projects that we use to develop the fees or to justify the fees. So that's the dual part of the nexus. Impact fees should be based on reasonable level of service standards. That can vary by community. So what's reasonable there is really, in my opinion, as defined by the city of Apopka. Impact fees cannot be used to fund deficiencies in capital needs or to pay for any operating expenses. So if you do not have enough vehicles for your current police department staff, you can't replace or increase those vehicles. But if you are growing and meeting the needs of expansion, you can spend it on new vehicles. And the fees are adopted by ordinance. Um, in addition to the case law, there's been impact fee history that started in 2006 with the Florida Impact Fee Act, Section 16331. This has been a tough one to follow. You can see here on my last bullet on chart 44, it was amended in 2009, 2011, 2019, 2021, 2024, and most recently in 2025. And every time they amend it, they're making it more difficult for us to collect impact fees and get them implemented. Uh, The Florida Impact Fee Act, some of the basics of it, says that it requires the calculation to be based on most recent localized data. So it can't just be comparing to your neighbors, for example. It should be your own capital programs and demographics that drive it. It provides that you have to account for and report the impact fee revenues and expenditures in separate funds. You can add administrative charges to the fees, but they have to be limited to an estimate of actual cost of collecting them. So that would be some admin fee time to collect it at time of permit. Requires 90 days notice before imposing the fee. So if you were to adopt the fee on a given date, you could not start collecting it for 90 days subsequent to that adoption. Annually, your finance director has to put together an affidavit that says you're in compliance with the act. It used to be that the developers had the burden of proof in any challenge of your impact fee policies. Not too long ago, in one of the iterations of the Impact Fee Act, they flipped the burden of proof to say the city government or the municipal government has the burden of proof if you're challenged. And you cannot issue any fees before the issuance of charge of fees before issuance of building permits. So we take into account the statutes and the case law. Again, I'm sorry, I'm hitting the wrong buttons here. Okay, so here's some of the new limitations. This is in the 2024 iteration. The impact fee cannot increase any more than 25% of the current rate, and it has to be implemented over 2 annual increments. If the calculation you develop exceeds 25%, it can only be increased 50%, and you have to take 4 years to do that. Uh, the impact fee increase may not exceed 50% of the current fee in place unless, and the statute provides for a findings of extraordinary circumstance. It also says that you cannot increase the fees more than once every 4 years. So when we talk about extraordinary circumstances, what we're saying is that you could implement a fee that goes beyond the 50% or do it faster than the phase in limitations, but you have to have a finding, the local jurisdiction, by 2 publicly noticed workshops. You have to put on the record the rationale for those findings, and it has to be approved by a 2/3 vote of the governing body. Now, there are new extraordinary circumstance provisions that will be changing based on uh, Senate Bill 1080, and they will go in effect in January. And they're going to say that you have to have 100% vote to get extraordinary circumstances, and that there's other limitations they place on your ability to implement fees. Also, city attorney has highlighted the fact that um, that the statute really doesn't define what extraordinary circumstances really means. The common arguments we make and see made by local governments are the demonstrated need for the projects. It's it's tough maybe to conclude some of these as essential needs, like for example aquatic centers, but again, high population growth, which you certainly are experiencing, high inflation environment, and the impacts to existing taxpayers if you do not adopt the fees at full levels. So those are some of the findings you can make. Uh, Again, the requirements for that will change in January 2026. So we probably want to think that through in terms of implementation. I know uh, Cliff is going to be talking to you more about his legal findings and how we can implement these fees properly.
Excuse
Uh,
me, Mr. Tom.
yes.
Holly is on her way.
Correct. Yeah.
So the fee calculation basis is to look at our demographic data, existing investment. Uh, we then allocate the facilities that are available to serve new growth. And then what we've done is we come up with a fee calculation. And for residential, it's based on a dwelling unit. And for commercial, it's based on a square foot, based on the type of commercial property. Some of the assumptions, again, 2.5% growth, 1% growth in through all the way through 2050. The reason we project out to close to build out is some of your assets that are in the plan, like uh, new training facilities and things like that, are expected to last you through build out levels of service. So the existing investment you have out there in police is about 10.7 million. You have 2.26 officers per 1,000 population. Fire, you've got 19 million in investment. You're 90% of the time you've got a 5 minute and 20-second or less response time. Parks, that 24.7 million, that's the one I told you that I need to correct. That should be 22.3 because the 24.7 included some minor equipment that shouldn't have been in there. So I will share with you what that does to the rate here in a minute. So the capital plan that goes into this, and again, it's not all allocated to new growth because these facilities benefit existing and future population. The police total plan is 86.1 million. We included 80 million of that. It includes the public safety complex, the police's portion at 54.5 million, and a $25 million training facility. Fire, the total plan is 50.6 million. 41.8 of that was included in the fees. Public safety complex, their share is 32.3, and a new station 7 at 6 million. Parks plan, the total plan is 116.9 million. Only 26.1 million was included. That includes land acquisition, a new soccer field, and new tennis and pickleball courts. existing calculations versus the fee and the caps. So this just shows you the current police fees. What the existing fee is per dwelling unit is 747. The new fee would go to 1262. Let me make sure I've got the right. And then the statutory cap is 1,120. So you couldn't go to the full. If you do the phase in, you can't, without the extraordinary circumstances, you couldn't go to the full 1262. Again, you can see that we, under the existing approach, we in the categories that we have, there's some shifting around of costs. There's some that are going down slightly, like institutional, and others that are going up, like retail, significantly. And this is based upon the latest trip generation data, the latest development information we have for your community. So this just shows you again. Now, with respect to police impact fees, I will tell you, you're already at the high end of these local communities and would go in this comparison to the highest fee from 747 to 1262. But again, that would fund those, the growth related portions of those major facilities. Fire impact fees, the existing fee is $708. The full calculated fee would go to $1,511. The statutory cap is 1062, so we could not phase in the full 1511 without extraordinary circumstances. You can see similar results on the non-residential portions where, again, some of them went down slightly, but many of them went up. And again, that's an attempt to use the latest and most recent data and calculate it as fairly as possible. Again, here, same kind of story on fire impact fees. You're kind of leading the pack already. You're in the higher end, and you would be among the highest in Central Florida on impact fees for fire. But again, you're trying to fund a significant investment in facilities that goes way beyond what you currently have invested in your police and fire services. Again, Parks and Rec, this is the one, let me go to my handout here that I have because this is the one I need to tell you changed a little bit. Okay, based upon that assumption I told you that we included some minor equipment in that $24 million number. The new fees adjusted, calculated would be $1,358, so it's slightly lower than the $1,431. And the multifamily would be $1,086, so again, slightly lower than the $1,144.
1086.
$1,086. Multifamily per unit, $1,086.
And for
Single
the single
family,
family,
$1,358.
Repeat that again.
Single family, instead of $1,431, it would be $1,358,
Okay,
and $1,086 for multifamily.
and 1086. Okay.
Right. So both of these fees are less than the 50% increase. So you could phase into the statutory cap, the 15%, or to this number. You'd still have to do it over 4 years under the current statute without extraordinary circumstances. So this just shows you here now on the rec portion, you are in the lower part of the center of the comparison with other communities in terms of your current fee, and you would move up slightly, but again, you've had a pretty robust recreation facilities program, and you've had good fees in place for some time now, so you're probably ahead of what some of these communities are trying to achieve in terms of their recreation plans. So this is just when we combine the police, fire, and recreation together, and it shows you where the average is 2634. You're currently at 2515. These proposals would take you to 4204 if you adopted them at the fully calculated levels. Again, you may choose to do the phase-ins and not do that. So again, the fee ranges are depending on the type of fee, between 35 and 113%. Residential fees are a lot more variable because they're by specific property types. Uh, the estimate of impact fees generally surpass the standard statutory limit of 50%. Um, we're going to want to talk some more, but you can implement these by doing the following the statute, or we could talk about having an extraordinary circumstance hearing. Maybe not all of them qualify for that. And I think, again, I'd like some more uh, support from city attorney on how we do that properly. And then this is just some of the things that Cliff has come across recently, and it seems to imply that you may have your hands tied if there's been a hurricane that's made landfall recently. Uh, he got these things as summaries of the bills, and we're going to be going through them, both of these bills with him, to make sure we're all on the same page on how they should be interpreted.
Henry, I think this the first bullet on this page. I think if fees have been not, I think you need to scratch out not.
No. If you haven't updated them, then that's not a good reason. That's not extraordinary circumstances. That's what they're saying. You should have been updating them. And because you haven't, you don't get to catch up.
Okay.
That's what it says. I'm telling you, they're making it more and more difficult. The other thing they've done to us that is a little tricky with what we've been doing, because this has taken some time, is that new statute also says that you have to complete the study within 1 year of starting it. So they're trying to make it hard for you to get these things done.
Wow.
So, you said we haven't been doing it on a regular basis.
Well, you
When
did
have we-
about 5 years ago.
That was the last time we,
It's been I'd have to go back and look. I helped you with them a number of years ago, but it has been it's probably been at least 5 years since we increased them. I'll get you that number.
16, that's when it started. I don't know if he increased them
I
after
thought we
that.
did it more recently than that for some reason.
The wastewater maybe, but
Right,
I'm not sure about
I still
that.
thought we hit impact fees too.
I'll go back and look at the dates. Of the
Some
reports.
impact fees you did,
But
like
my
transportation.
point is they're kind of trying to say that if you've been neglecting it and now all of a sudden you need it, it's too bad. And to me, what does that? I'm
Well, it's not saying that you can't do it. It's just saying you can't use extraordinary circumstances provisions.
right,
So we can still
which
increase
means-
them, but you
which
can't
means
go
You can't increase it to the level that
necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take Mount Dora for example. They are facing all this growth pressure. They're building a new wastewater plant. They're trying to pay for it. They implemented the fee use extraordinary circumstances. But under this provision, they might have been told, no, you can't do that. Then the existing citizens are going to have to pay for that plant expansion because there's not going to be enough impact fee revenue coming in to pay their fair share. So we really need to get this stuff right as it relates to all your funds, and that's why we're going to work with Cliff and come up with a plan that we think you can defend.
Is your recommendation, I would assume, to head the extraordinary circumstances route, or at least explore that and see if you're saying if Attorney Shepard
When
feels
we
that.
come back later to get you the document, we're going to have we're going to share with you some alternatives on how you make that decision.
Okay.
But we're going to give you the background, the legal background you need to make the right decision.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
So again, they have they've got a good lobby because to me this is the voice that's not being heard is the current citizens
Yeah.
in these kinds of things. And the article that Cliff shared would be the very top headline on it, and it was from the Planners Association, is these bills are very bad for our communities because it's going to make it harder to get development to pay its fair share. So these are just the various fees. We went through these already. I'm on the wrong one here. That's Parks and Rec. We just talked about that. We talked about the combined fees. We talked about those bills. So we're looking for Cliff to help us more on. So again, how we can deal with extraordinary circumstances. And given the one doesn't change till January, I think there may be a chance for us to do it under a little less restrictive approach. And then we'll come back to you to get direction on how to proceed and fee levels you want to adopt.
So, any other questions for Henry on the impact fee section? So, what, Henry, what does your timeline look like? So we would come back the next council meeting or a couple council meetings and then
Well,
lay out the plan?
so you want the water, wastewater, and I think Blanche is going to talk to you about stormwater, but the water, wastewater, sanitation, we want to adopt that with your October budget, right?
Okay, yes.
So whatever hearing you want to adopt those rates, I'll come. I would just
We do that in September, Henry, but
We'll
what,
do it right with the September.
yeah, but what I gotta get a consensus on today is if we wanna proceed, because I have to get the notices out by August 1st. And
Proceed with what?
with the rate increase.
So let's be clear. We've got a couple of things going on here. Water, wastewater, reclaim, you need to put a notice in the bill 30 days before that hearing where you adopt it. But you need to just tell them the time. You don't have to give them all the information. On the other hand, Blanche is going to talk to you about stormwater, and that one you have to give them a notice and tell them what they were paying, what they're going to be paying, and that has to go out ahead of that hearing to adopt those. And that has to be to the tax assessor's office. The roll has to be done by September 15th. We've got the roll done. Blanche is going to ask you for permission to do and again, we're noticing what the proposed rate is. You're not held to this. It's sort of like a rollback rate on taxes. This is the maximum you can charge.
So stormwater, she
Go
has
ahead.
to provide the resident what they were paying.
Okay, our normal notice according to our ordinance, and
Right.
what we have to do is when I sent out that letter
Right.
that I sent out on August 1st, that includes the plan or proposed rate increase for water and wastewater and sanitation. The stormwater rate increase notice goes through the trim process, just like our millage goes through the trim
Don't we need an
process.
official meeting for that then?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about stormwater now,
But
So-
these are all presented as presentations,
right? But I'm
so
trying to get a
non-action
consent.
items.
Not, I come back in September. All of these things come back in September with action items because those notices is also telling them when the hearings are going to take place.
Right. So the trim notice one, though, you need to get it out
That's gone.
ahead of the 30 days
Yeah,
of the
they had
public
to-
hearing. And what the commissioner's asking is that can we do that without their approval?
It goes out. It goes out in August. The trim stuff goes out, but we have a deadline with the property appraisal's office that comes prior to them. But it,
That has to be given to them by September. When do we give them the trim notice?
I have to have that to them by August 1st, and that goes out in August.
Henry, you
Henry,
Henry,
yeah,
you
come on.
stand up
I,
here.
I have to give that to them by August 1st too.
Right.
But the same thing with the stormwater, they go out in August.
Right.
But we have deadlines for both of them.
I think we're all on the same page of the timelines.
Yeah.
My question is, these are presented as presentations. We have to. You're asking for an official action, correct?
No, not necessarily you.
So you're not asking for any action tonight.
I'm trying to get a consensus if you want me to proceed with that or not.
That is an action.
Well, that's what we talked about doing. I normally don't come. I do it through the budget workshops.
Right. which
That's why I
is
gained that consensus.
normal where we do that. So
And
that's
we're
why
in a
this is out of
workshop.
order.
No, this is a workshop. This is a budget workshop.
We're again no action items.
And this is how we normally do it.
So when would you need to take action to put it on the trim notice for August 1st?
That's what I'm trying to do now.
So you're trying to get a consensus to do that?
Yes, and that's how we've always done it. That's what I'm trying to do now. This is how we've always done it. And then we had additional workshops after I sent out the notices last year, remember? And then I had to send out additional notices upon your request because of, the response. But this is the normal process.
But this is presented as a presentation, and you're asking
To
for an
give you
official
an,
action item.
I've shared with you throughout the budget workshop that the increases that we had reflected. And I shared with you that we had the 15.5 for water and wastewater, 15% for sanitation, 20% for stormwater.
Yeah, but that was just for the residential. We didn't go into commercial side of things either. So we didn't have all this information. So although you did present those high level numbers, we didn't have all this information until yesterday. So I just don't know how are we making a action tonight when these are presentations and it's a workshop, and workshops are specifically not to have an action.
Same process that we've done before. I got a
Just because
consensus,
we've done it doesn't mean it's right.
you know, this is how we've done it in the past. I got a consensus last year from the workshop and I was able to proceed. Because that's what, remember the workshops went through to cut it from the 40% down to the 23.75%. Those were done through the workshops.
I do remember all of
Yeah,
that, but we
okay.
did this in different order last year. We didn't do this workshop well after budget last year. It was all built in together so that we understood what we were talking about as an in totality of the budget.
We did several workshops in the month of July. This is again after the normal budget workshops. We did other workshops talking about the rate increase in
I
the month
remember
of
doing a
July.
lot of workshops. I
Yeah,
don't need to be
and this
reminded
is
on those. I remember that.
yeah, and this is one of those.
All right,
Similar
well, let's
to
move on to stormwater then.
good. Any other questions in regards to the other ones from Mr. Thomas? Thank you. So I'm gonna need your help with this. This was prepared by you as well. But again, we're proposing a 20% increase in stormwater as well. Ralph Tillis did provide this chart of comparison. So
Okay, so again, percentages can be a little misleading because we're talking about the it's an annual assessment, but for comparison purposes, we've broken it down here to monthly costs. And that monthly cost would go from 475 to 570. So that's your increase, and the existing average out there is 960. Now, I would tell you this rate is sufficient to fund your budget that's been put together for stormwater, but it's these rates are going to have to go up more in the future. As you can see here, the cost of providing stormwater services certainly, if you take this as any kind of reference point, it's not in the $4 to $6 range anymore. It's in the $9 to $12 range. So we're working on that, and we've increased the stormwater rates in recent years. I mean, we started out, I believe, at $3. So we're trying to work it up slowly. It is an assessment, so it will go on the tax bill as an annual fee.
So, do we have a 3 to 5 year similar plan to what we have in wastewater, water? Do we have something like that built out to where we can see?
So a number of years ago, we did some preliminary numbers, and then that sort of just, we don't have an updated plan for that right now.
Okay.
I would tell you, you need to work on that because you'd ultimately like to know where that rate needs to land.
Correct.
But I think, any effort to kind of try to increase it without putting too much burden on people is smart right now. Again, percentages sound big, but a dollar, less than a dollar a year or a month, less than $12 a year is pretty reasonable. But you will be asked to do more when we revisit it. Part of the issue here is we needed to raise enough funds to be able to do assessments to know what we need to spend the money on.
Wow.
So that was early in the plan, was a lot of planning activities for stormwater.
Sure. Okay. And so this is just specifically to this year's budget.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so next year, is there similar limits to how much we can increase that year over year?
No.
Okay.
No.
So if there's new projects that come up next year, or new needs that come up next year, we can increase this as needed to justify and accommodate our needs.
Yes, and when you have a plan that you feel comfortable with, it's a multi-year plan. There's ways you can adopt that within within the statute on the non-ad valorem assessment that will allow you to do it once and yet
Over
increase it
years.
over a period of time.
Okay, and that would be
So
something
you
I
don't have to come back and do a hearing every year.
exactly, and we'd be able to tell the residents, hey, this is exactly what's happening over the next 3 to 5, whatever the year range is. I think that would be helpful. Always understanding kind of the runway where we're going is definitely helpful, especially when it deals with their money. So, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So in regards to following the ordinance, we have to, send out the notices and then you do the public hearing. That's where the action takes place. So the standard process or the process that has been followed is discussed during the budget workshops, which is what we're doing now. And that's what I'm seeking,
So we're looking for consensus on the rates for,
that are reflected in the 2026 budget.
and that's just the utility rate, not the impact fee rate.
Correct. Just
Okay.
the utility rates, the water, wastewater, reclaimed water rate, sanitation
Sanitation.
rate, and the storm water rate.
Right. Okay.
So we're looking,
And I apologize, Commissioner Anderson, that you had a flat tire.
I was still able to watch on YouTube.
Oh, good, excellent, thank you.
So, any questions for Blanche, or are we good to move ahead with the rates that have been presented here today?
they're all in the 15%.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, this isn't a vote, so that's what's been advised. That's what needs to happen, and it is in line with the budget.
Correct.
So, again, it's non-action.
I know, I'm just trying to get in,
Yeah.
you have that opportunity once the notices goes
Right.
out, Okay, I just want to know if I can proceed with the notice.
And what was that increase for for wastewater?
It's 15.5.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of dollar amount per resident.
That,
I think from 80, 60 to 80. And Henry, will you be able to update the charts as the other cities come in and county?
Update their rates.
Yeah, if you could,
Yeah, I mean, that would take some effort. We'd have to go back through that whole survey and determine if they've increased rates or not and update it. But we can certainly try to do that before you adopt the rates.
yeah. So it'll be September the 5th. Is that right?
Yes. So,
hearing is
Yeah.
September 3rd.
3rd. I'm sorry.
Yes,
September.
September 3rd.
So yeah, if we could, I mean,
let's
Henry,
see
you
what
could
we
just
can do to
update
update
it.
as much as possible.
The
It's
end
just
of-
really hard to keep them really up to date when we don't know everything that's going on out there.
Correct. I mean,
It's a lot of research that, again, but we will undertake to do that. We'll make sure we get the important ones.
yeah. I mean, Ocoee, Winter Garden, Orange County, Winter Park, Altamont Springs. That would be maybe.
So this, sir, is the wastewater bill increase, the total at 6,000 gallons, which is your average consumption. And that's an $11.08 a month increase. From 71.38 to 82.46.
What was it 71? What now?
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me.
What was that 71? What you say?
It's a $11.08 per month increase. Going from 71.38 to 82.46. That's for 6,000 gallons, water and wastewater.
Any more questions, Commissioner?
When I do this, when I try to expand it to look at it, it
Mm.
jumps all over the place.
The 7138, if you look on the screen, you see it.
Because I have the sheet I've got. It's got it. Or
I know that is kind of one of the changes that they made.
okay.
So look on the
Okay.
screen. Yeah, I think they showed the Orange County rate instead of the city of Apopka.
Okay. Okay. All right. Just looking for some direction.
Yes, just a consensus to proceed with the notices. That's it. So I think Commissioner Nestor is in support of that. Um,
I'm good.
thank you, sir. Mayor, good.
Yep.
Commissioner,
It's what you recommending.
yes. Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
Any final questions? Any comments?
And in the meantime, we'll also get you some reports.
Yeah.
In addition to this briefing.
Yeah.
There's quite a few tables. and
Sure.
supporting documents.
No, that'd be very valuable. Thank you.
We'll get you everything that went into the previous iterations of the model.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And when will we be able to come back and address the impact increase?
When will you be available?
Oh.
I know you're out next week. Everyone's available last week of this month?
I am not.
Okay.
Why don't we add it to the just do
Yeah. Is that
first meeting? Yeah.
Say it
Do it.
again.
Add it to the first meeting in August.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Because then I guess we do need to know when the last time we did increase them as well, because that will
Just some of the historical
dictate a
information.
lot of what we're allowed to do,
Okay.
how we're allowed to move forward.
We'll do
It
that.
seems like it's been like 6 or 7 years.
Oh, that's when it was
2016.
implemented, but when was it increased after that? Never increased.
Since when? What year was that?
This is
2016.
2016.
2016 is the first time the city's ever had impact fees with police and fire.
here?
No, I do remember that. That I do remember.
That was the last time we did it.
Wow.
That was the first and last time.
No, we've done.
Transportation, we did increase.
Right.
And water and wastewater, we did increase.
Okay.
And that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
increase those. Mhm.
Henry, if you're gonna. Henry.
Yeah, come on here.
I mean, you were able to accomplish a lot with for particularly the rec increase, because back when we put that in place, the costs were a lot lower to do things. But yeah, that's the last time, if I recall right. It was 2016,
So
and you didn't even have police and fire,
no,
and your
no,
rec was a couple $100
Yeah.
at
that
the
I do
time.
remember that.
Yeah.
That I do remember. Because I was surprised that we never had, the city didn't have impact fees for police or fire. So
Well,
that you're
and
saying
one
that
of
that
the-
was the first and the last time that we did uh, the impact fees?
For police and fire and rec, yes, ma'am. So one of the things that you're looking at in the current fees is all these capital costs for new facilities are much higher than they were in 2016. Okay, but again, in addition to just the cost increases, you're taking on some new facilities that are significant for both the police and fire systems.
And when was the last time we did for sanitation?
So sanitation rates, I don't know when the
Every year.
last
Every
year, but we don't have impact fees for sanitation.
Okay,
Yeah,
you just
we did
raised the
an
fees.
increase last year with 10% last year.
Yeah, sanitation again is mostly operating costs, so there's not a lot of capital to be recovered through an impact fee.
Blanche, if we could maybe have that for the next meeting.
The
just historical on all the
Right.
rates.
Okay.
That'd be
Yeah,
that'd be
I
helpful.
appreciate.
Yeah.
I sure will.
Welcome that.
No problem.
Just to have an idea,
Yep,
because
yep.
now with the legislator
I
kind
know.
of putting a lot of restrictions on the
handcuffing
local
us.
municipalities,
Yeah.
you kind of have to work around that now.
Yes.
And like Mr. Henry said, no catching up. We can't. None of the municipalities can play catch up with the
And quite frankly, the way they've got it written, if you phase it in, you can only, if the analysis says your cost has doubled, you can't double the rate. You can only go up 50%. It takes 4 years to do it. And then you got to do the study again. And if you're still capped at 50%, you'll never get to cost, because as the costs rise and you keep doing the studies, you'll never be able to get to 100%. So it's a big win for developers, that statute. It really is.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for putting in the time for this and taking the time to present to us.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate
You
it. Good night.
Thanks, Henry. Thanks, Blanche. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming
That
out.
was interesting.